Good enough, thanks again for tuning in to yet another video. Infamous coming at you live from the West Coast yet again, San Jose, California. So we are going to be repainting the FXRT fairing for my Lowrider S. While I was prepping it, I noticed that we have some cracks here in the paint. You can see that right there, and it's just in this area right here. So, you know, when I mentioned the bracket itself, I think this is what I mean by, because it's pulling the lower bracket for the fairing. It doesn't sit perfectly, so it's pulling on the fairing, and I think this is where that's coming from, that stress. It's just a hairline crack. I mean, like I said, I didn't notice it until I started prepping the fairing, and then of course you get that white powder gets into that little hairline crack, and then you start seeing it. You know, there isn't much anywhere else. What I'm hoping is the okay.
Daddy, is a squid.
There's a squid. Okay, I'm almost there, Papa. Okay. All right. Anyways, getting on to the video. So what I'm hoping, the clear coat is going to fix this. That's what I'm hoping for. So this is also in another area where you're not going to be able to see it as well. So I'm just going to prep it, and we're going to hit it with the clear coat with the metal flake, and hopefully that covers it, and maybe potentially, you know, it just covers it up a little bit more. So anyways, onto the prep. What are we doing for the prep? Okay, so you guys, like I said, you guys already noticed I started already prepping this, sanding it. I wasn't going to record it, but you know what, let's just do it. Alright, so for all the hard to reach spots, we use a red scuff pad. So this is equivalent to a 320, and what you do with this is, of course, you hit it in these little edges where the sander will not reach. I have this orbital sander. It's got a little, you know, pad on it right there. Of course, this is a 400 grit. As far as grit, it really doesn't matter, because we're going to end up sanding it again, and we're going to have a metal flake. But if you want, of course, a smooth finish and you're doing a top coat, typically you should go 600 plus. But like I said, if you're applying a base coat and you're applying a metal flake, you know, 400 is just good enough. All right, that's I would say 320 is, you know, like I said, this is a 320. I say 320 would be the minimum or the maximum for the lowest grit number. So what we're doing, of course, like I said, this is going to be for the main, you know, surfaces right here, just to speed it up, because prepping this, you know, with just a scuff pad is going to take way too long. It's going to take forever. And the reason why we use this and we don't use the sander, because we don't want to burn through the edges. We could potentially burn through, and since this is fiberglass, we could start getting into the fiberglass and then burning through the actual fiberglass. That does happen if you have a hard flat surface along the edge. Eventually you are going to burn right through your fiberglass if you're not paying attention. This is a orbital sander. It should prevent, but it can happen if you have a low enough grit, like maybe a 180 or maybe a 80 grit and you're not paying attention. Even though it's an orbiting sander or a DA, dual action, you'll probably end up burning through the fiberglass if you're not paying attention. Okay, so you always keep it moving. All right, and I'll show you that in a bit, but this is just the explanation of why I use, or why you should use, a scuff pad, just to get in these little, you know, areas right here, because the sander's not going to fit in there. We have to get inside like this with the scuff pad, and you can see the high gloss finish. You know, it's getting prepped with the scuff pad, and this is the reason why we use the scuff pad, just to get in there and have 100% adhesion of the next coming metal flake or whatever you're spraying, base coat or primer or whatever. This is going to have good adhesion for whatever you're going to put on top of it. If you spray on top of the clear, forget it. It's going to chip off. All right, it's going to chip off, and that's what's going to end up happening. As far as the Dominator FXRT fairing, there isn't anything else concerning. There isn't anything else concerning. So we have the sander. We're gonna keep on prepping it, and then I'll show you guys how we do that, I guess. So let's get to work. Alright, so you can see that's how you pretty much prep this. Of course, like I said, this is a 400 grit wet sand paper, and there's a myth that if you use it without water, it's the same as using a 600 grit. My kid is watching a dinosaur movie and he wants me to go back inside. Aye boy, baba, aye boy. So yes, you can see how quickly that was. Look at that. I mean, we're pretty much almost there. So of course, once you get down here to the vent, this is where we have to use the scuff pad once again. So we have to make sure there is no high gloss surface. We're also going to, of course, wash this down and prep it for the metal flake. And that's pretty much it. That's how you prep it. You just keep on going at it, depending on what you're doing. We're on speed 1 and 2. Okay, we're not, like I said, it's an orbital sander, so it's not supposed to dig in. But if you're not paying attention, you could potentially burn through. You guys can see, of course, like I mentioned, speed 2. You could go all the way up to speed 5, or whatever you have on your sander. I just advise, be wary of where you are, because the edges are typically thinner than the flat surface that you have here. These edges are always going to be thinner because, of course, the paint, it wraps around the corners, and that's where you typically see burn throughs if you're trying to, of course, prep something for a top coat. So we're just going to keep on sanding it. I'm not going to record it because, it's going to be boring. So like I said, my kid finally fell asleep, so I was able to come out here and start working on this. Unfortunately, it looks like it's getting too late for me to spray this, so this is gonna have to sit until tomorrow. So I'll have to spray it tomorrow with the metal flake, which means it's not gonna delay me another day from getting this done, because I gotta wait for it to dry. So let's look at the sander. Now you can see, like I mentioned, on the edges you will burn through. Okay, we have a burn through right there. Sander and edges, hard edges, they just do not play nice together. You can see another burn through right there, and most of these are going to be at the edges. I believe I have another one right here. Yes, I do. Another burn through right here. Like I mentioned, all the edges where the paint's going to be the thinnest, that's where you're going to burn through. Now I have black paint, so I could touch it up, I could paint it, not an issue, not a problem. If you were trying to sand down and you were trying to add a candy or something like that and you burn through that, then that's going to be a repair. You're going to have to paint it, you have to touch it up, and then it's going to delay you even more. Now I know what I'm painting on the overall design. I know how this is going to go. I know that all these spots that I burned through, maybe this one, but most of these, this one, this one, this one, this one, and then I also have some on the bottom. You can see right over there. All of that's going to be black. So on top of metal flaking this, I know those spots. I'm not too sure about this one. This one I might have to touch up because I plan on doing a little bit of a design here. Not entirely sure, but for the most part, I see 90% of these burn throughs, they're going to be black. So if you know how you're painting this, let's say you burn through the metal flake, but in your head that that's going to be black anyways, because the design or your base coat or whatever you're painting it, you don't have to touch it up. All right, you don't have to touch it up, but I know this is going to be black because I'm going to have a 1/2 inch border all the way, all along the whole edge. And then my main working area is going to be here, here, here. You know, you guys get what I'm saying? I'll probably put a little design here, but you won't be able to see it anyways. And then of course this is going to be my surface. So I want it to be consistent, and I want it to be all one uniform color. The reason why I'm pointing this out is because the metal flake, it's going to have a different shade depending on how much, you know, how many coats of metal flake you're going to have. All right, if you're going to be doing light coats of metal flake, that's going to show through. Once you paint that with a candy color, that shade of metal flake in here, it's going to be completely different. All right, so if you burn through here in this area and it's black here, you spray metal flake here, like I said, depending on how many coats or how heavy you spray it, you'll be able to see the shade difference between the burn through and the black surface. All right, it changes because the metal flake is transparent up to a point of how many coats you throw on there. Same thing with the candy, it's also a transparent. So depending on, of course, the shade, you're going to be able to notice it. So you can see where the water's starting to dry. Of course, you can see it's all sanded down with the scuff pad. Okay, you can't fit the sander, depending on your sanding block, you can't fit that in there. So this is why you go in there and you just kind of scuff it up and just improve the foundation of the metal flake. You don't want this stuff coming off because you didn't do the proper prep, eventually wasting 20 hours of work because you didn't prep properly. So that's the #1 thing that we're doing here. We're trying to make sure we let it dry. We look for little pieces of, you know, of shine, of clear coat, high gloss. Look for that, grab your scuff pad, and then you just kind of, you know, touch it up, or grab your sander and then knock that out. So you knock that out, and then we check again, of course, and then we just keep on doing that. We keep on checking, we keep on checking our surface. And then let's look at what happened over here. I dropped my scuff pad. You always have to be cautious when you're dropping your sanding paper, because you do pick up little debris, little contaminants. You pick that up. When you go back to scuffing this, you could gouge out your paint. Now that's important when it's the final coat. All right, if you drop something on the ground, a wet sandpaper, I don't have anything here with me, do I? know? You're gonna pick up debris and you're gonna gouge out your paint. And once that happens, you have to make sure you scuff it down with a 600 grit, because those scratches might show through your final coat, and that's gonna absolutely suck when you're trying to buff it out and you're wondering, hey, how come I have those white lines? And it's because of that, because you dropped your scuff pad and you accidentally picked up you know, the garbage. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We're just gonna keep on cleaning it. Once I'm done, you know, once I'm happy with, you know, hitting all these little spots here, I'm going to clean the whole fairing again. Like I said, contaminants, oils in your hand, if you're eating, snacking, whatever you're doing, you touch the fairing, you are going to ruin the finish. If it bubbles, if it wrinkles, if there's orange peel, or if there's fisheye, stuff like that in the foundation, wherever it is, you know, some contaminants, they're pretty much unrepairable. The only thing for you to do is to sand it all down and start all over again, and that's gonna suck. So whenever I clean stuff, I go through quite a bit of blue towel, shop towels, and I also use a invisible glass spray. That's what I typically use. I do have a degreaser of some sort. This is my degreaser mixture right here. That is from what's it called? What's that? Harbor Freight. You can see it right here. Heavy duty degreaser. It's a high concentrate. You could do that. Clean it, and then you know what? Enough rambling. There's a lot of explanation in these videos because I have a lot of experience with prepping, sanding auto body, all kinds of stuff. There's just so many things for me to cover in one video. It's really impossible because there's just so many things I could talk about, so many things I could touch upon, mistakes, stuff to look for. So just keep in mind, these are like some of the tips that you should, you know, kind of know before you start prepping the fairing. So we'll tune in tomorrow because it's already too late. I have my my activators right here. So we have activators. I don't have a fast activator. These are medium. I have the ones I have in here, they're slow. So I don't have fast activators, meaning yeah, it just means that by the time I spray and, you know, other issues, it's gonna get colder, the finish can get wet. It's I mean, they'll get hazy because of the temperature. Those aren't meant to be sprayed at 60, 70 to 90 degrees. Right now it's going to start to dip into the 50s and it's going to be pretty bad. So let's go over here and let's look at what I'm waiting on. I'm waiting on this to dry. I sprayed this yesterday. You can see this is the rear fender. You know, it got a little hazy last night because of, you know, the temperature. I believe it was dipping down into the low 50s, and this is a medium activator. So it looks like that haze went away because it dried out, but this might be ready for tomorrow to start sanding down. I could sand this now, but it's just you know, it really gunks up the sander, so I'm not gonna rush it. I sprayed this yesterday. Tomorrow this should be ready to spray, and we should be able to start sanding this down with the 400 grit and then start laying down some lines. This is what it's gonna look like. This has been sitting out here for a minute now. It is filthy because of course I'm spraying. There's also overspray on this thing because I was painting these things here. This is my little paint area, stuff like that. But this is what, of course, the fairing's gonna look like. We have gold leaf, sun rays, this Aztec scaling that I really like. You guys seen the Sportster? That's, you know, that's pretty much the same design. So you can see that, and of course, and then we have the windshield over here. Same thing. I actually had to touch this up yesterday because I scratched it right over here. I don't have the space to be, you know, doing this stuff. This is my work area right here. This is like 3 feet by, you know, whatever I want to make it. But I was setting this stuff outside so I could spray other parts that I'm working on, and I ended up dropping the fender right around this area. So luckily the clear coat was still wet because it's just really cool. This is a medium activator. It's going to take longer to dry. So I mixed up a little bit more metal flake with the clear, and I touched it up right here. I'm not sure what happened here. I don't know what that is. I don't know. That's bizarre. I can see it from right here. I know I dropped the rear fender right in this area. Or was it here? It was somewhere right here. I did not see this yesterday. I wonder what happened. But yeah, you can see the coverage. This is a Power James windshield. So we're just waiting for this to dry. You could also see that I sprayed a lot of the, oh, there was a bug there. Maybe that's what that is. What happens, of course, is when you're painting outdoors, you're gonna have contaminants, you're gonna have debris, you're gonna have a lot of dirt and that stuff. For some reason, there's like a specific bug that just, they're attracted to the scent of this clear, and man, I get a ton of it. And what sucks when you're trying to pick it out, depending on how many coats of clear, it just sucks. All right, it is what it is. This is what I'm limited by, and you know, I'm not gonna be complaining. But yeah, I know, like I said, the same thing with the fairing. You focus your metal flake where you know you're gonna need it the most. You can see how, you know, it's a little bit more darker out here in the edge. That's all going to be black. Like I said, that's going to be 1/2 inch of this whole outer edge is going to be black. So you can see there's 2 different shades of metal flake here. All right, you can see that this shade of metal, a little bit more lighter, a little bit more metal flake, and then you come down here, you can start seeing a little bit of the base. I painted this black on the base. So same thing right here. You can see there's a little, it's a darker shade of metal flake, and then you have this lighter area. So that's why we're doing that. You know, it's just, like I mentioned, you're gonna have whatever base coat you're using. All right, same thing right here. I remember I burned through this area. Not a big issue because I ended up painting that black anyways. Same thing on this. The only reason why I painted this is because I had a lot of metal flake left over. So instead of, you know, throwing it away, I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna spray this, and maybe I'll put a little design or a little Easter egg right here for, you know, down the road or down the future, what happens. What I did notice on this one, because I mean they lay down pretty good when you're spraying metal flake. You could, you know, drip a little bit, but there's a little bit of an imperfection right here in this area because of the hose, because I don't have the space to work in this area. The hose on my air gun, because I was going to spray something else, rubbed up against the rear fender, and it gave me a imperfection. I think it was right here. You could kind of see it. You see this area? That's where my hose rubbed up against. So anyways, enough rambling. Let's tune in tomorrow. All right. For me, it's gonna be 1 day. For you guys, it's gonna be like 2 seconds. All right. So it's the next day, and it's really cold out here today. I'm still going to paint this. I don't care if it's not in the proper temps. It's gonna be warm enough because there's still a lot of moisture here. So I cleaned the fairing, completely sanded it down, scuffed it all the way through. I'm gonna clean it again. So I'm gonna clean it again, and we'll see what happens. But it's 100% scuffed down to just the clear. I was, you know, just thinking about these hairline fractures, or these hairline or spider lines, or whatever they call these. I think I'm just gonna hit it with that clear coat, and what I'm hoping, 4 coats of clear, it's gonna be sufficient enough to fill in those cracks. So I'm still going to touch up the little burn throughs, just so, you know, I mean, it's a small little thing. Okay, I have enough paint to touch those up. So yeah, we cleaned this last night, finished sanding it with the scuff pad and with the sander, and that's what they're supposed to look like right over there. This is what they're supposed to look like once this is all done. So all of this, of course, is going to match the fuel tank. These have been inside for the last 2 days because it's just way too cold. I noticed, and then on top of that, it rained. So I had already finished painting these, and rain got on top, and it completely ruined the finish. I had to sand it down again, repaint them, recoat them, because the paint clogged up the clear coat from drying, and I had these little you know, droplets on top. Once I wiped off the paint, the water, the clear coat was just ruined. So I had to paint those again, and it wasn't supposed to rain that day. You know, the weather got it, the weather channel got it wrong again. So we're gonna hit this. Of course, I'm gonna use a lot of flake because I don't want to put a, you know, I don't want to lay down a lot of coats of metal flake, because it's just gonna take that much longer to dry. So I'm gonna pack it with metal flake. Hopefully with 2 coats, you know, I have good coverage, and I'm hoping, even with the cold weather and having the wrong activator, I'm hoping the clear dries, because I have, of course, the windshield. You guys remember, I already went ahead and started sanding down the fender. So this has been drying now for 2 days. This has been outside. I started sanding it down, and it was dry enough. So this is what is this, 180 grit, the yellow one. You have a few different colors. We have the red one, which is 320. I believe this is 180 grit. So this is pretty old. You can see that I was trying to sand it down because there's just so much moisture in the air. That's why it's coming up like this. But here's the spot that I was mentioning where I think the air hose touched the fender, and it like there isn't even a drip or anything. It's just the air hose, because I don't have room here. The air hose just touched the this edge, and you can see how it changes the shade of the metal flake, just having that, you know, imperfection right there. But I'm hoping with the shading and the actual base coat, I think I'll be able to cover that up, so I'm not too worried about it. But yes, this has been now drying for 2 days, and it looks like it worked out fine. I believe I think there's 2 coats of metallic flake, and then another coat of just clear on this one. So we also ordered some plastic weld, and this is going to be for the saddlebags that I'm getting. I'm going to chop them up, show you guys how to do it, because yeah, this build's going to be, it's going to be a different build. So we're just going to wait another maybe 2 hours. We'll probably wait another 2 hours, and then we'll start painting. I'm gonna paint right there in that area. I'm gonna have to move all of those parts inside, because the overspray is crazy with the metal flake. It gets everywhere. So I gotta cover everything up. You guys can see I gotta cover everything up when I'm spraying metallic flake, because it gets everywhere. So we'll tune in about an hour or so, and then we're gonna mix it up, mix the clear coat, and I'll show you guys how to do that with all of this, you know, stuff that I have over here. All right, so we're getting ready to paint the fairing. This is my work area, already cleaned up as much as I could. Try to move the stuff out of my way so I can have enough room. Typically, when you're spraying something, you need to have at least, I'd say, 3 feet of, you know, moving area. All right, if we spray the fairing right here, the metal flake is not going to lay the same as it is right here. We are going to have consistently good range, you know, depending on how far away the surface and the nozzle is, or the gun. You know, 6 inches, maybe, you know, maybe about 7 inches right here. The closer the spray gun is to the surface, it's going to change the metal flake. All right, you have overspray, you're closer to the surface, then you're going to have less overspray, but you're going to have more metal flake on the surface. So like I mentioned, if you're spraying here consistently the same distance between the spray gun and the surface, once you get here and you start to get it all jammed up, because you have the hose, and of course you have the cup, everything, you're going to get closer right here. So you always have to plan how you're going to spray these parts, these components. So what I'm going to do, of course, I'm going to spray it like this, do this side first, and then very carefully grab it from here, and then, you know, switch this over, turn it around, and then spray the back side of this. So that's my planning. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to do that, because obviously I don't have 6 feet. Like I said, you got to have at least 6 feet so your shirt's not touching the surface. Clear coat is sticky, so if you were to touch it, it's going to ruin the finish. But like I said, we're going to sand it down, so I'm okay with it. You know, not a big deal. So in theory, you know, painting the bike and parts was actually a pretty good thing, because now I have the lowers, I have the handguards, the side covers, and the fuel tank. That's all painted. I don't have to worry about, you know, setting up a specific way where I could spray, you know, each part individually without, you know, causing issues with the other ones. And on top of that, the 6 feet rule also applies to the overspray as well. So if I'm spraying this final coat finish and I like the way it's laying down and it's smoothing out, and you know, all that jazz, if I go spray the next piece, if I have a fuel tank right here and I'm spraying the heck out of this, I'm gonna get all that overspray on this side of the fairing. So you're gonna have that smooth finish on this side of the fairing, and then once you get over here, you're gonna have all the overspray from the fuel tank right here. So you always gotta be mindful of, like I said, the 6 foot rule. All right, you gotta have a nice clean area all the way around your component, because you're also dragging around the air hose. So if this is really tight and I'm spraying the fuel tank over here, I don't have a lot of room. Look what's happening when I'm trying to get around, you know, when I'm trying to get around the fuel tank, because you got to spray it, you know, all the way around. The air hose is now touching the fairing. And then of course, if you have dirt on it like I do on the air hose, you're gonna contaminate all of those, you know, spots, and it's gonna ruin the finish once again. So you always have to be mindful of having enough area where you can move freely and paint your components, your parts. So like I mentioned, in the long run, yes, it takes longer, because you know, this would have been sprayed with metal flake already, and I probably would have already finished laying down lines and fine lines and all that stuff and the designs. But like I mentioned, I don't have the space to be doing this, and I shouldn't be doing it. But you know, it is what it is. So I'm just cleaning it with the invisible glass. I've already cleaned it. I think I've cleaned it like 3 times already. All right, I hit it with a degreaser, water, and now I'm doing a little final cleanup with the invisible glass. And this rag is already wet. I should really switch over to another one that's a little bit more dry. It's just so cold right now. It's just so cold to be doing this. It's just the water, you know, it's not drying fast enough. So yeah, and sometimes I'll use a little bit of alcohol as well sometimes, and this, you know, this evaporates a lot faster than everything else, than the other cleaner. So I'll use this too as well. I've sprayed stuff down with the alcohol, wiped it off. So what we're going to do, of course, you know, enough with the tips. I'm just gonna touch up those little burn throughs, show you guys what's up. I'm gonna mix up a little bit of black paint. If you go to a shop and they sell you just base coat, that means you have to add reducer in it. Typically it's 1-to-1. Typically, you know, most of the time, I say 90% of the time, it's going to be 1-to-1. You could always add a binder, but you know, it's just typically it's reducer, and then of course it's your urethane base coat. If they give you an activator with your paint, then that's single stage. All right, most of the time, anything with the activator, 4-to-1 or 2-to-1, whatever they give you, that's a single stage base coat. So you have to be, you know, cautious. Not everybody's gonna know what you're doing. You could buy the single stage, and then when you attempt to apply the clear coat, 2K clear, you're gonna ruin all your work. So you have to be careful what you're spraying underneath. So I'm spraying a urethane base coat. I will be able to paint, I will be able to lay clear coat after that, within, you know, after 30 minutes of flash time, proper flash time. If I were to do that with the single stage paint, you will see this finish wrinkle up underneath the 2K clear, and it's going to completely ruin the surface, the paint job. All right, 100%. You just have to be wary, and you have to know what you're spraying. Single stage, if you do, you could spray clear over single stage, but you have to let it dry at least 24 hours to 48 hours. And then you got to sand it down, because it's a single stage. It's got that high gloss in it for the clear to kind of adhere to the surface. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to mix up some base, touch it up. You know, it's just, I think I'm just going to do, I really just want to do this spot, but I'm already going to have the base already mixed up 1-to-1. So I might as well just touch up all those little spots, show you guys what's up. Right, let's get to work. All right, so we're gonna mix up a little bit of Classy Auto Paint and Supply. I got this like 2 years ago. I have this stuff left over from another one. Since I'm just gonna touch it up, I don't really mind using this other stuff. So we're gonna just go ahead and open this up a little bit. I have a ton of reducers to pick from, so you don't have to use the same manufacturer or the same supplier. You could always mix and match your paints, as long as you know it's you know, just the basics. All right, I would say when it comes to the clear, I would be a little bit more hesitant on mixing and matching different suppliers. But if it's like metal flake, it really doesn't matter. If it's metal flake, I really don't care if I mix or match different manufacturers, because I have a ton of clear as well that I'm trying to get, you know, rid of, and that's where I use my metallic flake. So what I usually do, I like using these little tablespoons. I also use this for my candies as well. I just grab a little bit, and I know in my head 1 to 1 is 1 scoop, one tablespoon or 1 teaspoon of this plus 1 teaspoon of reducer, and that's pretty much, you know, it. So this is always going to be a little gunky. And like I mentioned, I like using this and these little measuring cups, because I'm able to kind of measure my candies as well. I use this along with it with a little dropper. So we're just gonna dump that in there, and we know, I mean, this is gonna be enough. This is gonna be way more than enough for those little spots that I'm gonna touch up. And we know that we need about 1 teaspoon of reducer. You could always put a little bit extra reducer. It's not gonna, you know, hurt it if you put a little bit more reducer. It's just that if you put too much reducer, it might run, and you'll have to add a couple more coats of this base coat. So we have exactly, what is that, 5 on the measuring cup. So, you know, I just like using this stuff because this paint is expensive. This is like $70 right here. This quart. I think it's like $70 of color right here, and I'd hate to mix the big measuring cups, which I also have, but I mean, there's no point of me adding 1 ounce because I'm not going to use that. So that's why I like using these little cups right here. All right, so here's the reducer. This is speed coat reducer, medium, 65 to 80. It's not quite 65 degrees, but it's close. What I also like to do, of course, is just clean the top of it. You know, I have, of course, a dog, and her hair gets everywhere. She's a husky. So, you know, it's always just a good idea to kind of clean this up. That way you don't get that dirt and that debris in there, because I'm going to be spraying with the airbrush, and it's a fine needle. It's a 0.3, not a 1 or anything like that. It's a 0.3, so it's a very, very fine needle, and I don't want to clog it up. So we're just gonna add it up to 10. You guys saw that I went a little bit over 10, but you know what, having a little bit too much is still okay. All right, we're supposed to go up to 10, but we went to 15. So we have 1 part reducer, or 1 part urethane, and we have 2 parts reducer. That's 1 to 1, 2. But you know what, this is still going to be fine. It's not a big deal. We added twice the amount of what we wanted, but it is what it is, guys. So we're just going to mix that with that little mixing right here, and this is pretty much ready to spray the way it is right here. That's, I mean, this is ready. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab my airbrush, get it set up, and I'll show you guys that setup. This is going to be a long video, a lot of information in this video, guys. All right, so we have the airbrush set up. You guys can see this is the Iwata. This is the HPC, I believe, or the HP. Oh, it's the Eclipse, HPCS Eclipse Iwata. I've had that for a long time now. This is the setup for my air hose. I like to have a regulator on this line, so you can see this little contraption. We also have a water separator, just to kind of, you know, make sure we do not contaminate the surface, because I've had compressors that are supposedly, they have a water filter in it, and I still end up having water on the finish, and that just sucks, because it ruins the finish if you do get that. So it's always good to have additional filters in there. And of course this line I got it at Harbor Freight. This Amazon, Harbor Freight, I believe this is also Amazon, but they sell all of this stuff on Harbor Freight. This line actually comes with this connector, so you don't have to add or look for an additional connector, because this is the line right here. And when you buy it from Harbor Freight, they give you this little adapter or this reducer, so you can connect it to, of course, the nipple. Is that what they call this? A coupling nipple or something like that? Not entirely sure, but I typically shoot at 20 psi. So this is going to be set to 20 psi, and we're just going to touch it up. We're going to connect all of this, and this is pretty much going to be ready to spray. And then, like I said, we'll give it 20 minutes to 30 minutes of flash time, and then we're pretty much, ready to go. So what I like to do is just pinch the cup so it has nice little flow. Just give it a little pinch. Don't break it. Just give it a little pinch so it doesn't flow down underneath. And that's pretty much ready to spray. So let's go ahead and take this, connect it to the air hose, and start touching up those burn throughs. All right, so we're gonna get ready to touch this up. It's still a little bit of, just a little lint and stuff like that. We're gonna clean that up with the air hose after we're done with this. What I like to do is, because I mean, sometimes you'll clean this and you're not too sure what's in it. So what I like to do, I like to just kind of spray it off to the side, just look at what we have. Okay, making sure that whatever we had in there, like a solvent, a cleaning solvent, or anything like that, because sometimes it can happen. You'll have a cleaning solvent in there, you go to spray, and then you make a mess. So what I typically do is just spray. We see it's black, so we know it's good to spray. So I'm just gonna touch it up here, and you can see where it's taking a little bit longer because we have too much reducer in there. But it's all right. We're gonna get this done. You just have to do it in a few more coats instead of just doing it in one. So I know I have these cracks here, so I'm gonna just touch those up. And like I mentioned earlier, the reason why we're touching these spots up is because it's going to change the shade of the metal flake. If you paint something with the base coat white and spray metal flake, it's going to have a lighter shade than if you were to spray it black. The reason why I like spraying metal flake on top of black, because it gives it depth. That's just me though. So we're going to touch up these little spots. Of course, like I said, I don't really care about these spots because all of this is going to be black anyways in the final design. But you know what, since we're already here, and if you want to do it the proper way, then this is how you would do it. As far as the shading of the metal flake, that will also change the shading of your candy colors. All right, it's a completely different color if you were to spray candy on top of white base coat and black base coat. It just completely changes it, and it really depends on how much coverage of metal flake you're gonna have in there. So we're just gonna touch this up. And as far as runs and all this other stuff in this process, it really doesn't matter, because the metal flake, we're gonna spray it on heavy, and we're also going to sand it down again. All right, so I'm gonna keep on spraying this. I'm gonna give it about 10 minutes. You can see how it's still a little bit glossy, and then over here you're seeing how it starts to dull. That's pretty much ready for the next coat. Typically you let it flash for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes, all right? If you want this to to lay down properly, you got to give it at least 10 minutes of proper flash before you add another coat. 5 to 10 minutes. All right, so we'll tune back in, and I'll show you guys how to mix the metallic flake once I'm done with this. And of course, once you're done with this, you put the acetone in this. That's usually what I use to clean. You get rid of it, you cover this up, you spray this back, you'll see bubbles coming out the back. what you're doing there, you're blowing out all that paint out of the nozzle, because there's always going to be a little bit of material in the nozzle. What you see up here, that could be clean, but you're still going to have stuff in the actual nozzle, and that's why we put our finger up here, we open up that we open up the trigger, and then we blow that that paint out of there. Make sure it's nice and clean and ready for the next time we decide to paint something else. All right, so we'll tune back in a little bit. Stay tuned. All right, so we're gonna get ready to mix up our metallic flake with the clear. You can see how much leftover paint we had from the base. Look at that. We only used like 5% of it. So luckily, like I mentioned, we mixed a small amount, so I'm okay with letting that, of course, go to waste, because you can't really, I mean, you could put it back in your can, but I mean it's really not worth it, because you're going to contaminate your paint, your base coat, whatever you're using. So we have, of course, Riley's hair, because she sheds all over my stuff every single day. So we're gonna mix up the clear. You always want to look at what you have. It's gonna tell you on the side of the container. So this one asks for 4 parts of clear coat, which is what this is, 1 part of activator, which is what this is. So 4 parts, 1 part of activator. We're gonna look at our mixing cup. We're gonna look for that ratio. You'll see it right here, 4:1. So like I said, it always depends. Some clear coats are 2:1. Some but rarely are 1:1. Typically it's either 2:1 or 4:1 for the clear coats, for the most part. It really depends on what you get. If they give you a pint, kind of like this, I believe this is a pint, right? 32 flow ounces. If they give you this and they give you a gallon of clear, typically it's 4:1. Sometimes they'll give you half a gallon of activator, and that's where you'll do the 2:1. But like I said, usually you'll see it on the label. So we have it right here, of course. So we're gonna mix we're gonna mix 4 parts of clear and 1 part of activator. That's what we're gonna do. We're also going to be using a micro silver flake here. This is from Paint Huffer. I usually get my stuff from Paint Huffer because they have good prices. Yes, they do charge for shipping, but if you get the half gallon or half, what is it called, half pound, the half pound flakes, that usually, it covers it. I have a ton of this stuff inside. I have the 50/50 and I have the micro. I just like the way the micro looks. It gives you a little bit more definition. And it just looks a little bit sharper when it comes to spraying down your lines. It's like having the pixels per inch. If you guys know about cameras, you have 300, let's just say this is 300 pixels per inch, because you have 300 little dots per inch. The bigger the flake is, it's just me. Yes, you'll get more bright, but you lose the fine details, I believe. And look who's out here, freaking shaking up and causing and making a mess over here, like always. And I just already cleaned my fern, and now she's gonna be walking all the way around. I can see all the little fibers of her hair floating, of her fur floating all over the place. That's gonna be a mess. So you got to make sure the dog is put away or is inside. That's what I usually do. Put her inside before I start spraying, because she loves to come outside and shake and do all this other stuff. So back on topic. If you have pets, you guys got to make sure that they're away from this stuff. So we have the micro silver. We're gonna go ahead and mix this up. Enough rambling. There's always like little details and tips that I gotta put in there, because this video is gonna be super long, and I think I'm gonna be okay with this video having a runtime of 40 minutes. So once again, I have a dog, a husky. You gotta make sure this is clean. This surface, whatever you have in here, it's gonna end up in your mixing cup. You're not supposed to strain flake, because this is not going to pass through the strainer. So you have to make sure this is absolutely clean, free of debris. It is what it is. So always try to make sure it's clean, because like I mentioned, you're not going to be able to strain this because of the metal flake. You can't strain it. So we're just going to go ahead and angle this. We're going to look at our mark, And this is a large fairing, so I know it's going to need a lot of clear. We might need more. So this is the max that these mixing cups can go. If I had a taller one, I would have definitely have filled it up more than what I have here. So we have 5 parts. I don't know if should I angle this down a little bit. We have 5 parts of clear right there. So 4 to 1. That's what we got to use. All right. I know this is not leveled because I can see it angled like this, but as long as you know I'm there, even if it's like this or that or whatever, I know it's still going to be the same 4 parts. Because even if it's at angled, you know, at a 90-degree angle or a 60-degree angle, as long as it's right here, I know if I add this much, it's going to be the same amount. So typically, good idea to have a flat surface. So let's go ahead and set up the camera again right here, and like I mentioned, we're going to add it right up to here. 5 parts, 4 to 1. That's going to be the activator right there. And you also have a 1-to-1, and that's always if you know if you need to add a binder, or you need to add a candy. If you want to add a candy, you can. You'll know that your candy is always going to be 4-1-1, because the candy is going to completely change the amount of candy that you do put in here. It's going to change the shade, and it's going to change how it lays down. So we're going to go ahead and just add the activator where it hits the 5. And that's it. So now we have our clear is mixed. Like I mentioned, I'm going to add a lot of metal flake in this, because I want to lay down as much metal flake than adding, you know, 4 coats of clear. The weather's really cold right now, and if I add 4 coats of metal flake, it's going to take forever, you know, it's going to take forever to dry at, you know, whatever the temperature is right now. It's like 50 degrees. It's really cold. So taking my little scooper, this is what I use to get the metal flake out of this. It's not windy right now, but if it's windy, I mean, this stuff is really fine, 0.004. If you breathe on this, it's gonna fall off of your spoon. So don't breathe on it. Hold your breath, and just hope that it's not windy. If it's windy, take it indoors. All right, take it indoors and mix it inside. My family's inside. These fumes are, you know, it's too much for them, so that's why I'm doing it out here. And luckily, it's not too windy for them. All right, so we have that set. We have to mix this, of course. We have to mix it. You can see that the metal flake sits on top. Slowly, it's going to start to sink down. It takes about 5 minutes. So what we're spraying with. We're spraying with this one. This is, of course, this is different from the airbrush. This is a 1.5 nozzle. I've sprayed this metal flake with a 1.3. You could do it. It's not gonna clog up the paint gun. The only time I see that stuff happening is if you leave it in here. The metal flake doesn't take long for it to start to settle down. You can see it's starting to sink in. It takes about 5 minutes. If you have that in here, if you leave it inside, it's going to clog up your paint gun. So this is why I always transfer it back into my mixing cup between coats. So this is a 1.5. We're spraying this at 16 psi. 16 psi. That's what we're spraying this at. So make sure it's clean. Same practice. Spray this away from your surface in case you do have some type of a solvent in the nozzle. It happens, guys. I have sprayed. I clean in between coats of clear just to make sure it doesn't harden in here, because sometimes I let it flash for about 15 to 20 minutes. If I clean it and I add more clear, all of this is solvent. Acetone on clear that hasn't fully dried will ruin your finish. So this is why it's a good idea to develop a habit to spraying away from your surface and just looking to see what you have. So I'm not going to go into the details of the fan or anything like that. I'm just giving you guys the basic details as far as the pressure, the PSI. So this should be a high, yeah, it is. So if it's a high volume, low pressure, 15 to 20 PSI should be sufficient. Luckily, this is metal flake, so we're gonna end up sanding this down. All right. Once it comes to the top coat, to the final finish, you have to make sure your air gun is dialed in properly, because it will ruin your finish, and then well, it won't ruin it, but it's going to give you more work in the long run. You'll have to sand it down and then buff it and cut it down and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and grab our mixing stick. I have these wider sticks for these clears, because you can see it's really heavy because the amount of clear that I put in there, I mean of metal flake. But like I said, more metal flake means more coverage means less coats, and if we have less coats, it's going to dry faster. All right, we want this to dry, you know, within 48 hours. We're not adding any reducers or anything like that. I never do that, but like I said, it really depends on what you're doing. Some people would add a reducer onto this. So, I don't know. I mean, it's really up to you. I paint outdoors. It is what it is. I don't have the space and I don't have the resources. So this looks really good. This looks like this is ready. We're gonna go grab our mask, dump that in there, and spray it as soon as possible. Because like I said, every minute that you wait, this metal flake is gonna start to sink down to the bottom, and it's gonna change how much metal flake you're spraying. Once you start getting towards the end of your pass, if you let this metal flake, you know, drop down over here, all of this material that you're spraying up here is not going to be consistent with the spray, with the metal flake coverage. You're gonna have a spotty metal flake coverage, and that's going to transfer. It's going to show in the final product when you're spraying the candies and and everything. When you're spraying the designs and all this other stuff, it's going to change the shade of the candy because of how inconsistent the metal flake is. You got to have a nice consistent spray when it comes to candies and metal flake. I always say that. So let's go ahead and start spraying this. All right, so we're getting ready to spray. I wanted to show you guys a setup of my paint. We have a filter and a dryer system here. We have two water filter separators because I don't have a little device on this one. This line's going to be leaking like crazy, so that's the way I make sure I don't get any water in this, because water can ruin your day if that's what you're looking for the final finish. What I like to do before I spray, I like to just kind of hit it with the spray gun. Make sure we get all that, you know, all the little lint and contaminants. And because the dog's, she's been walking around here, I know there's going to be a little bit of debris being kicked up. What I like to do, because my hands are full, I like to do the back of my hand and just kind of like just feel and move all of the dust, all of that debris, all of that stuff. I like using the back of my hand while I'm spraying, but because I have the camera in my hand, I'm not going to be able to do it here. But that's what I like to do. Make sure, because there's always going to be like this little stuff right here. So you could use a tack cloth. If you have a tack cloth, this is where you would use it, because it picks up all of that little garbage. But I mean, it really, like I said, I keep on saying it doesn't matter, because we're going to sand this down anyways. We're going to sand it down. This isn't the final finish, but it's always good to develop good habits. So what I'm planning to do here is, man, this thing keeps on leaking. It's starting to annoy me. I want good coverage here, 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 and here. So a lot of the stuff like down here, I don't really care, because this is all going to be black. All right, so typically if you're spraying something and you want consistent coverage, you got to lift this a little bit more, so you get a good angle of what we have here. When you're spraying, you always got to be mindful of you know, how you're spraying this. You always got to plan it ahead. It's like a roadmap. You have to plan your path. You have to plan your path, because you don't want to move this stuff around. All right, the more you move it, the more you touch it, the higher the likelihood of you bumping this into something. And it's happened to me before. While I'm moving something, I have stuff back here. There's a good chance it's gonna hit and bang up against that when I'm painting stuff on this little racket. You know, just recently my lower touched, banged up against this cardboard that I have there. I have exhaust in there, so we're just, you know, trying to use the back of our hand, because a lot of times when we're touching stuff, we use this side, your fingertips. So that's the reason why I don't use my fingertips to clean the stuff off, because we have oils and all this other stuff. So I like to use the back of my hand, the back of my knuckles, just to kind of knock all that stuff out. And we're pretty much ready to start spraying. All right, so we're getting ready to start spraying. Everything's pretty much down. Make sure it's nice and clean. Like I mentioned, we're going to focus on the parts that I know I'm going to spray. So we're at 17 psi, if that matters. So of course the compressor is going to start to kick in now. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking for 50% overlay, just to make sure we get good coverage. The more we delay this, the more the metal flake's going to start to settle down in here. So let's go ahead and start spraying. I already went ahead and I sprayed away from this to make sure I don't have any solvents or cleanants or anything like that in here. So typically you always spray, you fan out, because if you don't fan out, you're going to lay more material in that area. And I don't have my respirator on, so because you guys can hear what I'm saying. But this overspray stuff, it gets everywhere. Anything within 10 feet, 15 feet, you're gonna get metal flake on. So you got to make sure everything's covered up, whatever you don't want overspray on. Alright, that looks good for the first pass. I'm going to try to move the fairing so I can get the back of it. I don't think, can I properly do this? I'm just going to scoot it out a little bit further out. You guys also noticed that I didn't spray the inside here. Like I said, the parts where it's going to be black, I know it's going to be black, this is going to be black. So that's the reason why you're not supposed to leave this in here. You're supposed to take it out. But my light's going to be, you're not going to see any of this stuff, and all of this is going to be black. So I don't, like I said, I don't really care about the coverage in those areas. This is going to be black, that's going to be black, you know, some of these other parts that are going to be black. So I'm going to make sure that I get my coverage where I want it. So we're gonna just hit this spot. We'll see if I could do this properly. You're not supposed to change, like I said, you're not supposed to change the distance, because now we're forcing ourselves to get in here. It's gonna change the way the metal flake lays. The closer we get, you're gonna get more material, you're gonna get less overspray, but there's a chance that you might run. If you do run, it's gonna pretty much ruin the effect of the metal flake, because it's gonna have a buildup. So you always want to spray minimal, do not spray it heavy, and then we'll see what happens. I still have this stuff in here, so I got to be mindful of the metal flake, because it's starting to settle down. It's going to change the amount of metal flake that I'm going to get. So we got to stop talking and start spraying. See that right there? My hose is starting to knock into it, and I can't properly spray this. So we'll probably switch over to that side to spray the inside of this. I know there's going to be a design there, so I got to make sure I get good coverage there. So let's get on to the other side. Always be mindful of your hose. See right here, I can't really get this in here. That's going to be a mess. So we have to tilt this just a tad bit out, so we're not getting runs. The closer you are to the surface, the more likelihood you're going to have a run. You see that right there? The bottom of my hose just knocked into the bottom of the fairing. You got to be mindful, but that's all going to be black, so I really don't care. The reason why you see me tilting the gun is because when I tilt it up this way, you can see how the clear comes in out. It's coming out on top. The reason why I tilt it down like this in between is so I could fill up this little cavity full of metal flake and clear. When you're spraying like this, you're gonna run it dry. So what I do, I tilt it upright, get that material back in there, and then I'll spray, and then I'll turn it. If you have what's it called, a PPS system, then that acts like a vacuum. So you don't really have to do that, because this is a gravity fed paint system, gravity fed paint system. So that's one of the benefits of that other system, but I'm not going to talk about that because I'm not using it. So I say that's pretty good. I can see a few spots here and there that it's not fully covered, but I think for this, with the second pass, we'll be able to get a little bit more coverage. And now that the sun is out, we might start to see that kind of help speed up this process. And that's how you spray metal flake. We're gonna go over it again, maybe 2 more times, focusing on the parts that I am going to be painting. This other stuff I'm not going to be worried about too much. So what I like to do while I wait for this to flash, I like to grab my flake, pour it back into my mixing cup, and then we're going to let that sit, because if you let it sit in here, it's going to clog it up. You can't let this stuff sit in here. So let's go ahead and just dump this back in. Let's get this away from the sun. This is going to start to dry up with direct sun contact. You see how the sun's hitting it there? It's going to warm it up. You don't want to do that. You always want to keep this away from the sun. And typically, you don't paint under sunlight, because it changes everything. It's going to change everything, because if you're looking at the fairing, the sun's hitting it on the right side, but the left side, it's going to cool down at it's going to have a different flash time on the left side. Luckily it's silver, so it doesn't suck in the heat from the sun. And that's usually what happens when you're painting black. You'll have that issue where you'll start to see it dry up on one side, and then it just really changes the finish of your final coat. So I always use acetone to clean my stuff, and this is the part where you're in between coats. That's got to flash for about I say 15 minutes, 10 minutes. That's got to flash for about 10 minutes. This is the time where you go in here and you start cleaning out your spray gun, and then you'll see how the stream will slowly work that clear out of there. And where's my lid? what I like to do, like covering this up, getting my nozzle and cutting and clogging up that vent, just giving it a little bit of shake. You see how the clear comes out the sides, or the acetone that starts to come out the sides because it's pushing out all of that acetone all the way inside. You see how we got a lot of that stuff out. And yeah, you could just clean this up, you know, give yourself 15 minutes. I put way too much acetone in there, but it's okay. I mean, I'm all right. I wasn't paying attention. I'm over here communicating and I wasn't paying attention. Typically you should use gloves because this acetone stuff, yeah, it burns a little bit if your hands are already dry. So we're gonna do that, and I like to reuse my acetone, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab this cup that my dog chewed up. This is a perfectly good cup, or used to be. So I'm gonna put this acetone in there. Might be able to use it for the cleaning process, because you know, all these materials cost quite a bit of money. I'm gonna put that over here. We're gonna grab another towel. We're gonna try to get some of this gunk out, because we don't want the spray gun to clog up on us. And like I said, you're not supposed to use a strainer in any of this. This is where, you know, the strainer will help getting some of that gunk out. All right, so we're just cleaning it up, trying to get all that gunk, trying to make sure that it does not clog up while we're spraying, because it's just gonna make a mess. We'll have to transfer this over to a different gun, and it's gonna, you know, cause us to delay. So look at this. This is where I wanted to point out where you're seeing it. Oh, that's ready to spray. You put your stuff in there, you start spraying acetone. You see that right there? There's still acetone. There's still acetone in there. Here, let's see if I could get this in there. So it's always a good habit to make sure that you spray that out. You see that? That's acetone right there. So there's always going to be a little bit of stuff in there. I'm just going to put just a little bit more, and that's it. You see how it bubbled in there? It's filling in that cavity. And yeah, this is what we do in between the coats. Just clean up. Give it some proper time to flash. Let that come out. You can put it in your little cup if you're trying to save it, so you can use it for later. Then once again, you see that, you look down your cup, you think, oh, this is clean and ready to go for the next coat. You don't know that the cavity is filled with acetone. You spray this on your surface and you ruin it. Let's spray it. Look at that. That's all acetone. All of that is acetone. You put that on your clear that's still not fully dry, you ruin it. So now we wait, keep on cleaning, and we just repeat it until we're happy with the amount of flake. And that's how you paint a fairing, I guess, with metal flake. I'll probably separate the other videos, but that's how you prep. This video is already going to be super long, but now we wait. Once you're happy with the amount of coverage that you have on the metal flake, you seal it with more clear coat. Just clear. The reason why, of course, is this is metal flake. You sand it down, you're going to wear through your sanding pads a lot faster. If you don't care, then you know what, you could just sand it without sealing it. But sealing it gives you enough room to kind of get the orange peel out, the high and low spots out, you know, just to block that stuff out. So that's why I like adding maybe you know, 2 coats or 1 coat of sealer on top, just so I could have a little bit of working area where I could, you know, knock this stuff down, you know, flatten it, because the metal flake, of course, it doesn't lay down flat. It's bumpy, it's rugged. People have commented that looks like that guard stuff on a bumper. What is that stuff called? Man, I can't remember. But yeah, it's gonna have that texture because of all the metal flake. So that's that. And then we'll tune back in right before I do my next coat, and I'll show you guys how the metal flake kind of settles down, and how, you know, that would pretty much change, you know, the outcome of this. So we're gonna wait, and like I mentioned, this is where this side of the fairing is gonna dry up a little bit faster than this side of the fairing. You know, you always got to keep that stuff in mind, because the direct sunlight is heating up this spot of the fairing, so this is going to change how fast it flashes compared to this side. So typically I'll look for a spot where, you know, I'm okay with. You touch it, and if it's a little bit tacky, I mean, this looks like this is pretty much ready right now. I'm touching it, I don't really feel you know, it doesn't feel wet. So I would say this is probably ready for the second coat already. Well, I'm actually kind of surprised. I don't know how long it took me to clean the spray gun. Maybe it took me about 7 minutes. So yeah, this feels like it's ready for the next coat. So yeah, let's go ahead and get the gun ready, I guess. So moving back over here, we have our spray gun. We know we've already sprayed it with the acetone. We made sure it's clear. Come over here to our material. You can see that little, you know, 3 to 4.5. That's all just clear. The more you wait, of course, the more this is going to settle down. So you always got to mix this up before you put it back in your spray gun. That's what we're going to do. You see how now it's a little bit more consistent. So we got to make sure this is all out there evenly. You know, it's just when you're spraying it, it's more consistent. It's more even. You don't get little spots of just, you know, of metal flake here and there because it's not mixed up properly. And this is pretty much ready again. Take our spray booth. We know that it's clear, but we're still going to spray it. We're going to put that in there. And we're going to spray another coat of metallic flake. And we still have enough material here. I'm actually kind of surprised. So we're going to grab this. Grab our air hose. That looks good. And get back to it. A couple more coats. Alright, so while you wait for your metal flake to flash, you could just look at it, make sure you're happy with the coverage. As far as the back of it, I think I'm happy with it, you know, this area. Keep in mind that the coverage on the spots of, you know, the opposite side of the pieces, you know, it's okay if it's not as much covered. I mean, it really depends on you. If you're really anal about the way it looks, then you can have 100% coverage all over the fairing, all right, if you want that. But myself, I think I'm okay with the backside of this, because once I add another coat of metal flake on this side, that's going to change the coverage. Now I do like some of the base coat shining through. Like I said, I like the black base coat because it gives it depth. That's the reason why I like a little bit of base still in here. So I don't like 100% coverage. You can add more coats, you can add more metal flake, but I like the contrast of the base and the metal flake. It just, like I said, it gives it depth. I just don't like just the silver, you know. I just don't like that. I like to have a little bit of black in there so you can see a little bit of that depth. So like I mentioned, you see down here, I'm just showing you guys an example. All of this, you see the coverage between this and this is not the same. All right, but keep in mind, all of this is going to be black. You can see it right here too. You can see how this coverage is not the same as this. That's going to give you a different shade of candy once once you start laying down candy. But like I mentioned, this is going to be black, so you have to be mindful of what you're going to be doing in the final design, because this and this is going to be two different shades, and you're going to notice it once you're done. You're going to notice it. What is going on here? I got I got a little garbage everywhere. Not sure what's going on there. Like a little bubble. Not sure what's going on. But anyways, I'm going to put a design here. I'm going to put a design here, and I'm going to put a design up here. So this is where I'm going to focus on for the next coat. You always have to make sure you have a consistent metal flake where it's going to show, because you'll be able to see the difference. It's gonna be noticeable. So you always got to make sure you have good coverage where you plan on making the designs and spraying the candy. So just showing you guys here and there. I'm gonna go ahead, maybe start spraying the final coat. This time I'm gonna wear my mask, so there's no point of me recording. You guys already know 50% coverage, and then we'll spray the final coat of just clear, seal it, and then I'll show you guys, I guess, the final results once we're there. Stay tuned. All right, so while we're waiting for this to dry, all right, flash time 5 to 10 minutes. You could actually just let it flash a little bit longer than that. The reason being, if you spray a heavy amount of clear after this and it's still wet, the clear can actually drag the metal flake down. So that's another tip. You know, it's always okay to let it sit 20-30 minutes flash time. The surface will still, you know, adhere to the next clear coat. So if you wanted to, a good idea would be to kind of let it sit flash for a good amount of time, 20 to 30 minutes, maybe even 40 minutes, because I could touch it and it feels like it's ready. You know, it feels like it's ready for the next coat. But like I said, it's always a good idea to just kind of let it sit a little bit longer. I can feel that it's still tacky over here. You see how the difference between the sun hitting it and what we have over here in the shadow? I can feel it tacky on this side where the shadow is. So I'm just gonna let it flash a little bit longer than I normally do for this final coat of clear. And like I mentioned, if it's still wet and you spray it heavy and it starts to run, that metal flake's gonna get dragged down, and you'll see it. You'll see it in the metal flake, and it's gonna ruin the effect of the metal flake. So for the final coat, just give it a little bit more time of extra flash, and then oh yeah, that still feels a little wet on this side. We'll just let it sit for maybe another 10 minutes, because I'm gonna blast it with this final coat of clear, and then we'll see how she looks. So I'm pretty happy with the results so far. Like I said, some of the stuff that you can still see a little bit more black in there, the base coat, all of that's going to be painted black. This is all going to be black. The outline's going to be black. So this is going to be black on the inside as well. And I think this is going to be black too. So I'm not too worried about how you can see. There's two different shades of metal flake in there. Here and here. You can see it. Even though the shadow is kind of in there, there's two different effects. But you know, that stuff, maybe that's all going to be black, all of that. So my main focus is where I'm trying to make sure I get good coverage, consistent coverage. So that's pretty much it. This is the final part for how to, I guess, spray metal flake on a fairing. And then I'll probably check in after I spray the last coat, and we'll see what happens, how it looked in the end. Of course, it's gonna have a bumpy finish because of the metal flake. I mean, it is what it is, guys. Once you block it down, you'll be able to smooth that out with this final coat and have a nice smooth finish for you to start laying down lines and start laying down your design and all this other stuff. So long video on this one. I'm not going to cut it in parts like I usually do. This is going to be a full video altogether. You guys could, you know, scrub through it. All right, let's go back inside and eat some lunch. All right, so we have now sprayed 2 coats of just clear and some heavy coats. So like I mentioned, as long as you let the metal flake flash properly, you could have runs in this process, because I'm laying it heavy. Luckily there is no runs. Alright, so there is no runs. so we don't have to worry about you know, just when it comes to prepping it, when it comes to getting it in the next step, as in block sanding it, making it nice and even, it's all consistent. I sprayed it heavy, but it's still, there's no runs at all, so that's pretty good. But that doesn't really matter because we're gonna have to sand it down anyways. We have to block it down. You can still see, of course, there's plenty of orange peel. I don't want to waste more clear coat. This stuff is expensive. You know, it's just the gallon itself, you're looking at $110 plus. If you live outside of California, you could buy the clear coat for about $70, $80, which is pretty cheap. But California, I can't get the stuff shipped to California because they just won't ship it. So let's go ahead and just look at what I mean by, you know, burn throughs. Now, keep in mind, I did not try to cover this area, because of course this is going to be black. I didn't want to waste the metal flake in this, but you can see how the burn through is going to have a different shade of the metal flake. Now, if this was probably a little bit more covered in metal flake, maybe you might be able to see a little bit less noticeable, but you can see how the white, which is the gel coat, the white base looks completely different. It's a different shade. So if you were to have burn throughs and where you're going to be painting and designing stuff, you will notice the difference when it comes to the candy. Alright, so this is the reason why I touched up, I think it was this spot somewhere right here. I wanted to make sure that this was touched up. So you guys saw when I touched it up with the base coat, now it's more of a consistent color. I had burn throughs here, doesn't matter, I was going to paint that black anyways. I just wanted to show you guys what could potentially happen if you leave a burn through somewhere in this area. That will stand out like a sore thumb. So overall, it looks pretty good. Like I said, we're going to sand this down. Most of this is going to be black, so you can see a lot of the metal flake is where I'm going to be designing stuff. All right, now this will be noticeable. Once again, if you have this good coverage here and you have this type of coverage here, you can see the shade's going to be different. So if I was going to put a design here, that would have a different shade of candy than this spot. You can see very noticeable coverage. These are pretty much, I say 80% covered. This is more like, this is just mainly just overspray, but this is probably like 50% coverage because you can see a lot of the base coat right here. Alright, so I'm going to be putting something here. Definitely I'm going to be putting something here. You can see the difference. Now, luckily on these sides, you can have a different coverage here and here because people are not going to be looking at both of these sides together at the same time. You could have, like I said, I think I have like 3 coats of metal flake here, and I believe this is 2 coats of metal flake right here. So you don't have to be consistent when it comes to the back side and the front side. People can't see both of these surfaces at the same time. They can't see them at the same time, so you won't notice the difference if you have a different shade of metal flake than this side. So this, of course, you have to make sure it's all the same consistency, because like I mentioned, you will be able to see the difference. The reason why I flip this around is because I'm more picky about this side. I don't want the sun drying up this clear coat too fast because I just finished spraying it. So what I want is I want the clear coat to kind of settle down a little bit, so it'll smooth out a little bit more instead of having, you know, this orange peel on it. But like I mentioned, we have to sand it down anyways. It's just when you let the clear coat run a little bit, you won't have as much work as sanding it down. So yes, it sucks that the sun's out directly on it, but I mean, it is what it is. Most of this is going to be just black. You can see right here, I don't know what that is. That could be a bug or something in there. It looks like there's something inside. For some reason, bugs are just attracted to the scent of this clear. So this is just one of the, you know, it's unfortunate, but it's just one of the downsides of painting outdoors. You have debris, you have bugs. They will settle on your clear coat, but like I mentioned, we have to sand it down anyway, so I'm okay with the bugs and I'm okay with all of that. As long as it don't mess with my metal flake, I'm good. But that's how you set this up. Of course, once we're done with this, We have to sand it down again with a 320-400 because it's going to be base anyways. You don't have to worry about the scratches showing through the final product. So you can sand it down with a 320-400 grit. If you wanted to, you can sand it down with a 600. But I like doing the 320 because it's just faster, the prep. You know, you don't take as long as prepping it. And then, of course, the base and the design, it's all going to stick to it very, 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 very good when it's a 320. 600, you can still do it. I mean, it's fine. But I just like doing the 320 for that. And then once it comes to prepping for the final coat, that's when I'll hit it with the 600. But that's pretty much the end of this video. I guess this video is going to be called how to lay or how to spray metal flake on your fairing. This is a long video, guys. Thanks for watching. Life's a risk. Get out there and ride. Later. Oh, just one more thing before I sign off. You guys are going to see that I have 3 different spray guns here. Alright, so this one clogged up on me. As soon as I started spraying the final coat of clear, I started noticing that there was no clear coming out of it. So I figured that was clogged up. The reason being, I believe, is because I didn't clean this cup. I do have these cups underneath here because they don't fit in my tool box. So I typically store these separately. They're stored right down there. I think that's probably what happened. This clogged it up. Luckily, it was in the final. This one, for some reason, this is the 1.3. Typically, you spray clear with a finer nozzle. This one was just dripping out of the front. I'll show you on this one. It was dripping right here. So for some reason, it was dripping, and the last thing you want is drips coming out of. I have acetone in here. Last thing you want is a drip coming off of the nozzle, that tip, and falling on your surface. So that's why I quickly abandoned this, switched over to the 1.8, 1.7, switched over to this one, and this one was able to get the job done. So and that's why that clear is so heavy, because I use the 1.7. Typically 1.4, 1.5, 1.3, those are better because, of course, it atomizes. How do you say it? I can't say it. The air and the material, the mixture is a little bit finer, and so it gives you a better finish. Having a bigger nozzle means more material, bigger droplets, meaning more orange peel. So finer droplets, more air, gives you a better, smoother finish. So now I gotta paint all of these. This one I'm gonna do a thorough cleaning, 100%. I'm gonna break it down, clean it, because I don't know why it was leaking out of that tip. But anyways, you know, I'll show you what's over here. This is the fender. Painted this 3 days ago. This was looking like the fairing with all of the orange peel, and you can see now that you know, it looks a lot better. The reason why it's all covered in dust is because this morning it was just so cold. I was sanding it down. But this one, you can see, you know, it looks pretty. It's pretty much ready for the tape, for the lines. I was using this yellow scuff pad. This is a 130 grit. This is a 130 grit. I'm just saying that this is the next step. Once that fairing dries, give it about 2 days, because it's really cold, and I sprayed 4 coats of clear. Give it about 2 days. We're gonna do this. Of course, we're gonna sand it down. We have a sander over here as well, and we're gonna block it out, get a nice smooth finish like you see here. No more orange peel. Look at this. It's nice and smooth. It's not going to transfer over to the next process. We're going to have a smooth, flat finish, even, and then we're going to start spraying the little patterns and all the little designs that you want to do. I like keeping it traditional. I don't know. I'm thinking about, you know, maybe the next project I paint, it's going to be a little bit more modern, a little bit more, you know, craziness. I just really like following the lines of what I'm painting. So that's just me, though. I mean, there's different styles. There's millions of different ways to do this. Millions of different ways to do this. But enough rambling. Thanks again for tuning in. This is the next step, and it just takes time. 4 coats of clear, sand it down, and then you spray the candy. That's another, you know, coat of clear, 2 coats of clear. Sand it down, and then you do a final coat, maybe another 2 coats of clear. Then you gotta block it down because the surfaces between the designs and the actual base and the overall, it's gonna be all different. Then you gotta block it down again, and then probably spray another 2 to 3 coats, and that will finalize you know, the process. That's pretty much how you do this. So stay tuned for, I guess, part 2 of laying down lines. I don't know if I'm gonna do that video, but life's a risk, you have to ride. Later.